again, everybody, and welcome to the Wrestling Archives podcast. I'm your co-host, Tim Hackman.
And this is Rich Sigwell.
What's so funny over there, Richard?
I think I heard your stomach growl as we...
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. I may be a little bit hungry.
Oh, all right.
We have not joined you in quite a while, friends, and we send our apologies out for that. Life is complex sometimes, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. There's real estate, and there's national elections, there's work, there's travel, there's families and sickness. There's what else is there? There's the aliens have not quite landed yet, but God damn it, I hope they get here real soon.
Yeah, I mean, a plague didn't take us the last time, so let's see something else.
Yeah. Have you watched Investigation Alien on Netflix yet?
I have not. Is it good?
Yeah. It's all right. It's all right. The host is pretty insufferable. He's a supposed journalist, and I guess he's a journalist. I don't know, but he's very impressed with himself. So, and there's some stuff that's ridiculous, but then there's a lot of stuff that's like it's footage I hadn't seen before, and I kind of know. I kind of got into it, so I don't know. Like I said,
nice. I've just been watching gangster movies to cope with my depression lately. So, like,
hey, whatever works, you know.
It's just like Casino and Goodfellas and The Departed back to back to back over and over again on permanent loop.
Those are good ones.
I mean, I guess it's better than like the made-for-TV nuclear war movies that I've been stuck on for the past, I don't know, a year or so. Or just been watching Countdown the Looking Glass and By Dawn's Early Light and The Day After.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
Over and over.
On the Beach? Did you watch On the Beach?
No, I should probably find that one. But
yeah, is that the one with Fred Astaire where they're in Australia and they're waiting for the nuclear cloud to come over?
Yeah. And I watched Space Camp yesterday just because like I wanted to remember when I was innocent and when like and it's such an 80s like a little time capsule of like the space shuttle, and that you don't really think twice about teenagers being on the space shuttle while they test its engines, and then a robot that befriended them sabotages it to make them force the shuttle to launch so his friend could go into space. You know,
this is why I'm against AI.
Yeah,
you know,
you befriend it and it shoots your ass into space, and
that's
then
right.
you don't have any oxygen, and so you're like. Your teacher needs to do a spacewalk that she's never been trained for to do, you know, top notch. The gay black kid from Nerds is in it, and Joaquin Phoenix is like Joaquin Phoenix's first role or maybe his second role.
Really?
Under the name of Leaf Phoenix.
Leaf. Is his lip all fucked up?
Yeah, he's kind of weird.
Okay.
He's obsessed with Star Wars in this movie because, you know, it's 1986 and they're at space camp. Yeah, there's a couple of other notable 80s stars in it as well. That got me through part of the afternoon yesterday.
Yeah.
So.
Now that sounds like fun. I haven't thought about that movie in ages. I remember when it came out and we were all excited about it, and then it turned out to be dog shit. And then I think our entire generation just promptly forgot about it completely.
Oh no, I was obsessed with that movie. I have distinct memories of like after watching it, wanting like a reading light mounted over top of my bed. And so we went to IKEA, I think it was, and we picked up a lamp that could clip onto a bookshelf above my bed. And so I now had the overhead reading light in my bed that I never used. But damn it, I wanted it.
Because you saw it in the movie.
Right. Because that's the kind of child I was.
It's simple needs, simple desires.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should all go back. Well, speaking of going back, we thought we'd jump back into the past and talk about some old school wrestling. This is the August 7th, 1976 show from Madison Square Garden, of course, the famed sort of mother church for pro wrestling in the Northeast. It's a WWF show.
The WWF.
I was going to say it's WWF. If So it's still technically Vince's dad who's running the promotion here, and it's a pretty typical show for this time and place. So we were, I don't know, why did we kind of, I think we were watching too much shitty recent wrestling and thought it'd be good to kind of palate cleanse almost.
I had just been watching too much stuff and just was like, I want to get back to the roots and see what like I'd been watching a lot of the modern current WWE, which is a bit of a change for me. And it was just like, I need to see like what it was. And there's been a lot of talk again about Bruno Sammartino these days, especially after Cody ended Roman Reigns' run, who Roman was approaching slowly, but not really going to get there, because modern day wrestling can't handle having a single heavyweight champion for 7 years. You just can't. It just doesn't make sense in the modern product. And so,
yeah, we don't have that kind of attention span anymore as a culture.
No. And nobody has that kind of a draw for that long of a period. You can't just saddle up. Like, if you seriously think that like Cody Rhodes is going to be able to carry the WWE for the next 8 years, boy, you are like, the way show business works and all that, you're always looking for the next kid, as opposed to how combat sports used to work back in the day, where you found your pony and you hitched your cart to it and you rode that bitch to every single town you could. And that's essentially what they did to Bruno Sammartino.
Yeah. Nobody's more popular in the Garden than Bruno in this time. He's there, if it's the Mother Church, he's the freaking Pope. He's there to perform the last rites.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking of like, there was some movie ages ago that was like, it was like in an Italian restaurant, and there was like a picture of Jesus and then a Mary, and then it moved sideways and there was a picture of Frank Sinatra. And I was just kind of thinking that, like, if the camera went the other direction, Bruno Sammartino would be on the other side of the Virgin Mary in this sense in New York. Like, it's just, he is so over the top and he is so in. Everybody just loves him. And I wanted to see why. That's what drew me to this show. And you were like, sure, what the hell? I'll watch it too.
I'll watch just about anything.
Yeah.
No, I think going back to your point about Cody, I do feel like he's almost kind of losing it already. I think the crowd's a little less enthusiastic, not in a huge way, but I don't know. I think it's starting to taper. I'll be curious to see how much they can get out of him. I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth between him and Gunther and Roman and whatever they do with John Cena here in his last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too, is that you got to have someone worthy of challenging him, right? And it's the same deal with the superhero movies, right? The better superhero movies, the better the villain. That's what makes the superhero movie so good. Thor would suck without Loki. I started referring to those films as the Loki movies. That's, and then it turns out Loki is basically the best villain of all of the MCU. And so it's kind of the same deal in pro wrestling. If there's nobody to run up against Cody, right? So like the moment Cody beat Roman Reigns, Roman disappears. There's nobody there to push back, right?
Yeah.
And I think they're hoping to get that out of Gunther, and I don't know if Gunther is quite charismatic enough to pull that off. He's definitely skilled in the ring enough to do it, but to have the personality that you need to also be the big antithesis to Cody is not there.
Yeah, he's big and strong and scary for sure. I've noticed they're letting him talk a little bit more lately, and he's sort of kind of being a smartass, like a little bit of a dick, which I didn't get before. He just kind of mostly just came out and stood there and stared and occasionally gave some sort of threat. But now he's kind of, I don't know, biting back a little bit verbally, which I think kind of makes sense when you have a face as loquacious as Cody is, because Cody talks a lot and he uses a lot of big words and he uses very dramatic language. So you almost need somebody who's a complete monster who doesn't speak at all, or you need somebody who can kind of spar with him a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. I'm curious who else comes up. They're never going to run out of Samoans apparently, so they can always let's find the next scary Samoan to fight at. He could fight a Samoan a week for the next 3 years and probably never repeat one.
Yeah, they're emptying the island. They're just. This is their. I mean, no, I don't think they're actually from American Samoa. I think they're just from Samoa. But if this could be like American Samoa's like ploy for statehood is like, look at all the wrestlers we've given you, like just keep pumping them in via Allentown, PA, and Tampa, Florida, and just look, here's a new one.
Yeah. Could be. Who knows? Well, so 1976, Madison Square Garden. I was just looking to see what else was happening in 1976. There were Olympics that year. There was a coup in Argentina that threw out Isabel Perón, and then we had to have a bunch of musicals about that. VHS debuted. That's interesting. Earthquake in Guatemala killed 23,000 people. That's nice. Black school children in South Africa started protesting against apartheid. That's kind of a big deal. U.S. had its bicentennial that year. Let's see, what else? Jimmy Carter beat Ford. Was it Ford that he beat? Yeah. Become the next the president. I was not yet born. I wasn't born until 1977. So, Patty Hearst went to jail. Anything else? Well, first, here we go. Here's a local one for you. First 4.6 miles of the Washington Metro subway opened March 27, 1976.
Yeah, they opened it up they started building that for the bicentennial celebration.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
Apple Computers founded out there in California. Anyway, eventful year. I guess they're all eventful years if you think about it. But in Madison Square Garden, all that is out of sight, and we're rocking and rolling. You got a really strong card. It's a kind of interesting mix of sort of mid card and job guys, and then some really big stars, and then some obviously the main event is Bruno in a cage with Stan Hansen for the WWF Championship. But there's some other good stuff happening here. There's some kind of surprises, you would say. I didn't take a whole lot of notes on the individual matches, and I was more interested in sort of the kind of the look and feel and just sort of the vibe of the whole thing. But we can kind of work through them and see if there's anything that's worth pointing out to the listeners. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Alrighty. So why did you pick this one in particular? I mean, there's plenty of old school ones and plenty of with Bruno in the Garden. What was the draw?
Well, this is Bruno's return to the ring, right? Bruno is returning to the scene of the crime to confront Stan Hansen for basically an absolutely horrendous botch. Stan Hansen was going to, I think, body slam Bruno, messed it up, dropped Bruno right on his head. Like, just spiked him on his head and broke Bruno Sammartino's neck. Put him out of action for 6 months. Bruno was after the incident, Bruno insisted that he was fine and walked out, drove himself to Pittsburgh to see his own doctor, and his doctor was aghast at the fact that he just drove from New York City to Pittsburgh with a broken neck so severe that he was like a twitch away from being paralyzed for life. If you haven't watched the documentary on Bruno Sammartino that the WWE did back in 2013 to celebrate his Hall of Fame induction, go watch it. It's absolutely fascinating and has some great firsthand stories out of directly from Bruno Sammartino. He talks about his early childhood, and it is dark. Like you can't imagine just how dark it was. So he grew up in Italy under the Mussolini regime, and at this point in time, Hitler had gotten tired of Mussolini's dicking around, and so Hitler has invaded Italy to take over running the country as well. And so the Nazis storm into his village and basically put everybody under arrest. But as they got word that they were coming, and Bruno and his mom and his siblings disappeared into the woods behind the city and up into the mountains. And there was a day where they had snuck back into town to get supplies, and as they were making their way back, they were intercepted by 2 Nazi soldiers who had at that point bound them up and was preparing to put them in a firing squad and shoot them. And that's when 3 Italian underground soldiers popped up and killed the Nazi soldiers in front of them right before they could shoot.
Jesus Christ.
Right.
Man.
And so then they survived the rest of the war in the woods. And then when the war was over, they emigrated to the U.S. and settled in Pittsburgh. So
yeah, people who lived through that war, in particular, have some of the most just insane story, experiences that nobody should really have to go through. But it's crazy.
Yeah. The documentary also talks about how Bruno going into like the Hulk Hogan era, and he was working for WWE at the time, and he wasn't very comfortable with some of the stuff that WWE was doing. He didn't like drifting away from all the action in the ring and more like the storylines and stuff like that were happening. But then by the time they got to the Attitude Era, he publicly said that he did not like wrestling. He did not like what WWE was doing. He disapproved of it. He did not like that it wasn't family oriented, and he walked out and refused to have any kind of relationship with WWE. And it wasn't until the PG era really started kicking in and Ruthless Aggression in 2013 or so that he was willing to talk to Vince McMahon again. And that was basically brokered by Triple H. Paul Levesque brokered the relationship between, rebuilding the relationship between Vince and Bruno so that Bruno could then be inducted to the Hall of Fame. Because how do you have your longest reigning champion and the person that the company was basically built on until Hulk Hogan came into the picture not in your Hall of Fame?
Yeah, for sure. That was a pretty egregious oversight, and I get the split. So that would have been my first exposure to Bruno was in the 80s, and they sort of brought him back as they called him the living legend, right? And he came out, and he's been on one of the 2 of the WrestleManias we watched. It was in a couple of Royal Rumbles from that era, I'm pretty sure.
His son, he was manager of his son for David Sammartino,
who's not good.
Right.
It's not his fault.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get to more of good old Bruno towards the end of the card. Let's start with the undercard. Johnny Rivera defeats Jose Cadiz to jerk the curtain, as it were. I didn't have anything to say about that one in particular.
One, Vince McMahon is absolutely horrible on the mic. If you thought he was terrible in the 80s on the mic, go back and listen to him in the late 70s on the mic. He's just... It's still the, oh, look at that maneuver. Oh, what a move. Oh, instead of any kind of calling of the actual action. Yeah. There was some
1,
fantastic...
2, no.
Right. Oh, my God.
Every fucking time.
There were some great arm drags. This is an indicator that WWF is still very much a local promotion. He calls out Mrs. Krieger, who's sitting in the front row, that she's at all the Madison Square Garden shows. Like, this is some sweet, sweet old lady, but, you know, with those times, the way she looked, she was probably like maybe 40. But she looked like a sweet old lady that comes to all the wrestling shows. And she's very vocal and very into it. And so that was great. And it was a fun finish, too. Johnny Rivera landing a flying body press to get the 3 count on Jose, who was from New York, but not the face, which is very unusual, I thought. But, yeah.
Yeah. Decent opener. Next up is SD Jones, Special Delivery Jones. Sort of very, very solid mid-card guy for a long, long time. We, of course, saw him on WrestleMania 1, where he gets squashed by King Kong Bundy in, 16 seconds. The actual time and the reported time are sort of different.
Yeah.
He's wrestling Johnny Rods, who is a stud. Good old Johnny Rodriguez is still alive and kicking. He's in his 80s, 86. I think... I was going to say, I thought he was... Oh, he's from Brooklyn. Anyway, these guys, I thought these guys had kind of a fun match.
Yeah, this was a good one. They're
both really, obviously very talented, very, very polished, trained performers.
Yeah, there's some great heel tactics out of Johnny Rods, just complaining to the ref, trying to do things behind the ref's back, using his body as a shield to using an open fist, all the good, the good old-fashioned stuff. It's very clear that they're also going with black people have impenetrable heads in this match, because SD Jones is the master of the headbutt, and when Rods punches him in the forehead, it hurts Rods and doesn't bother SD Jones at all. And then we have another sign of the times. There's just a couple dudes in the front row chain smoking. It's like, boy, and you can see the smoke hanging in the arena, and it's not because they got fog machines going for dramatic entrances. It's just because 80% of the audience is this chain smoking cigarettes. They're lighting the next one off the last one. So, yeah. We have the
good old days.
I know.
The good old days, yeah.
The good old lung cancer days.
That's right.
And
kids
then,
today. Remember when you could smoke? Remember when you could smoke in the mall?
I do remember that. That was nuts.
People will hear that and be like, "You're lying." No, I swear to God, you couldn't walk around with cigarettes, but they had benches with ashtrays and stuff, and you could.
Yeah.
It's not like the smoke is going to go anywhere. It's still a mall, man.
Yeah, I remember the smoking in Security Square Mall, and the smoking section and the non-smoking section of the Friendlies that was in the mall. Yeah. And I still remember the Bob Evans in Catonsville having a smoking section and a non-smoking section. And you would go there on a Sunday, and the church crowd would be piling out the door. You just walk up to the server and be like, I want to sit in the smoking section. They'll seat you immediately, because there's nobody sitting in the smoking section, and there's nobody smoking in the smoking section anymore. Right. So it was just instant table.
That's funny. I remember where I grew up around York. The last place to do away with the smoking section was the Wiener World hot dog restaurant. That was the place that where the smoking section held on the longest, and those people fucking smoked. I just have a feeling if you're eating your meals in Wiener World, you don't have a whole lot else going on, so you might as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, no, it's fun to see that here. I wonder what year the Garden switched to non-smoking. Maybe
90 or something like that.
Something for the research department.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember also the bowling alley that I went to. They still let people smoke in it, even though smoking indoors had long been banned in the state of Maryland. People were still smoking in there, and they were just they actually had a person that was specifically stationed at the counter to watch for any kind of the state inspector to come in. And they would make an announcement if they were suspicious of somebody. So Fun times. What a changing world we live in.
Yeah. No, this is a pretty decent match. I just saw something. I just searched for Madison Square. Went to Madison Square Garden. Stop allowing smoking. And there's something about a 1926 smoking ban, but clearly that's not the right one.
No.
Oh, maybe that was a temporary thing. Maybe somebody caught fire or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving right along. Who wins? SD Jones wins this
SD
one.
Jones gets the win in one of those backbridge pin moments to where you can't tell who's got their shoulders down, and then SD suddenly makes it clear that it's his shoulder is up, and so Johnny Rodz gets pinned, and Rodz thinks he wins, and he starts pleading his case to the audience, who boos the living Jesus out of him.
Fuck off, Johnny Rodz.
What a great heel. What a great heel. Loved him.
Yeah. SD Jones was from Antigua. Who knew? Antigua. Lake Titicaca. Oh. He was actually trained by Johnny Rodz. So. Anyway, next up on the card, this blew my mind. Bobo Brazil versus Doug Gilbert.
Wait. That's not next on the card.
That's not next on the card. That's what's on the list I have here.
Next on the card was 2 out of 3 falls, Jose Gonzalez and Dominic DeNucci versus the Executioners.
Well, then this page is fucked up.
Yes. I don't know if maybe old school changed the order, but the order that it was aired that we watched.
Oh. Okay. Well, then cut that, and we'll go into the Executioners.
Yeah.
So next up on the card, this one's a killer. This is a riot. Is the Executioners? Executioner 1 is Killer Kowalski, if you can believe it. Executioner 2 is a very young baby Big John Studd, and they are fighting Dominic DeNucci, which sounds to me like a 50s doo-wop singer, and Jose Gonzalez. No title or anything, just straight tag team action.
Yeah. So. This match is insane. It's best 2 out of 3 falls, as were the classic title matches in the day. And wow, there's a lot going on in this match.
They're not really into rules so much, those Executioners.
No. Very early in the match, Executioner Big John Studd demonstrates his incredible reach and grabs DeNucci, who is nearly in the middle of the ring. And Studd just pushes down on the top rope and leans over and grabs DeNucci by the back and pulls him over into the corner. Dude, why even bother making him have to tag in and out, because he can already reach the center of the ring from the corner.
Yeah.
It's insane. Killer Kowalski is doing these intense, weird abdominal grabs. Yeah. He's just pinching their fat on their bellies or grabbing their love handles and squeezing in these weird holds I've never seen used in wrestling.
That's
They're very
the claw.
It was very reminiscent of Kamala's titty grabs.
Yeah.
But it's on the abs, and
yeah.
It's putting the onus on the victim to completely sell that move, because otherwise you could just lay there and be like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you grabbing me there? Yeah. So it's just there's a lot of that at the start of this match. It's a very slow burn for this match. But then it starts picking up, and at one point after the first fall, which goes to the Executioners, I think it's Kowalski who gets tossed out of the ring, and some old lady is reaching over the rail and hitting him on the back, and he turns around and blindly swings and clocks her. I don't think he knew it was some old lady hitting him, but she learned not to interfere in the match.
Yeah.
After that, she ate one right on the chin. This is possibly my favorite match on the card, believe it or not.
Yeah, no, there's a whole lot of chaos, and it's a good time. So Kowalski started wrestling in 1947, so he'd been in the ring nearly 30 years at this point, and this is actually he retired the next year in 1977. So he is trained by Luthez, if that tells you anything about how long this guy's been around. And he of course then became a pretty famous trainer himself, right? And he trained a bunch of people that are like still in the business, I believe.
He trained Triple H.
Yeah, that's right.
There's this something about this match too that it's very clear that they're calling it in the ring. There's a lot of improvisation going on. Mm-hmm. There's a few missed spots or whatever, but that's just because it's a fight and it looks way more real than a lot of other things you see in pro wrestling right now. And it's because they're calling it in the ring. They're going for it. And, not everything's going to look pretty in a fight and look perfect. And these four folks work that crowd into such a frothed frenzy that you're like, they haven't even gotten to Bruno and Stan in a cage yet, and they're going fucking bananas in Madison Square Garden. Like, it's insane how much heat these guys are generating.
Yeah, so Dominic DeNucci is a great baby face. He's an attractive guy. He's very, I don't know, and then matching him up with my thing just died. With Gonzalez is they're both young and pretty and great baby faces, especially when you get them in there with the dastardly masked a-holes. So the Executioners,
definitely some like ethnic heat being drawn into the booking as well, with the strong Latino and Italian crowds in New York, and you put them together against two masked baddies, and you're just going to get magic out of it. Like, it doesn't even matter who's under those masks. But then you have Killer Kowalski and Big John Studd just putting on a clinic on how to be heel tag team. They're switching in and out without tagging because, they're both in masks. You can't tell who's who, even though one of them is like 6'8" and the other one is an old man. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can't tell who they are. And they're just constantly switching in and out without tagging. They're grabbing in there. They're double teaming a lot. And then at the same time as Dominic DeNucci's getting worked over, Jose Gonzalez is getting in the ring and drawing the referee's attention away from the action, and it just feeds an incredible environment at Madison Square Garden for this match.
Yeah. Big John Studd was built at 7 feet, but obviously we know that doesn't mean he's actually 7 feet tall, but he's a big motherfucker. The Executioners do get the win here. Unfortunately, the crowd is not happy at all. They let them hear it.
They retained on the third fall of the match, and it's a good finish too. It's Gonzalez is going for the body slam, but he gets kicked from behind, and the Executioner falls over top of him, and the ref doesn't see it. And that's the count of 3 right there.
Yep. Yeah, good stuff. So since the page I'm looking at here is clearly all out of whack, what's our next match?
The next match I have is Bruiser Brody.
Okay.
With the Grand Wizard versus Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah. So the page I'm looking at here must have stuff that didn't appear on the video, maybe.
Maybe.
Anyway, this is another really good one. Actually, this is Bruiser Brody in his prime versus tiny baby Kevin Sullivan.
He still has baby fat on his face. It's weird.
I couldn't believe how young he looks. And I mean, he would have been pretty young here, right? And
he can't be more than 20, 25 at this point in this one.
Yeah. And Bruiser Brody, if you haven't seen him before, he is an awesome presence in the ring. He looks like a true wild man. He looks like he's completely out of control. apparently the nicest guy in the world outside of the ring, but he
Unsinged hair, the boots with the fur.
He looks terrifying. It's crazy. Okay, so Kevin Sullivan was born in 49, so this is 49 to 59, 69, so he was 27 here?
Yeah.
Ish. That's still pretty young. And they don't have much of a wrestling match. It's more of a it's more of a mildly contained tornado.
Yeah, they say something about this being like Bruiser's first WWF match or his first match at Madison Square Garden, something like that in there. But yeah, and then the other thing that I thought was wild to me and totally different than modern day or even like just like a few years later is that the Grand Wizard walks Brody to the ring and then pieces out. He's done. That's all he has to do. That dude's getting a paycheck, and all he has to do is walk down to the ring, point at his bad guy, and then leave. Good luck. I'm out. He doesn't have to interfere. He doesn't have to do anything.
Doesn't have to throw any Fuji dust in anybody's eyes.
No. Wild.
Yeah.
What a job, man. I want that job.
Seriously.
Jesus.
I'm going to start doing that at work.
Yeah.
Just be like, so that is Ernie Jacob Roth. That's the Grand Wizard. He's a weird-looking dude.
Yeah. And Brody gave me a lot of Jim Duggan vibes on this.
Yeah.
The way he carried himself, his physical presence, his attitude. But, Duggan's super positive. Brody is this fucking maniac.
Insane, yeah.
Yeah. Both of them very close to each other, but just Jim is good guy, Brody's bad guy. And, Brody just pounds on Kevin Sullivan for like 10 seconds and then throws him up in a backbreaker torture rack behind his neck. And that's it for Kevin Sullivan. That was over real quick.
Yeah.
And then he just threw him down like a fish, just like... It's like blah, and just dropped him right to the mat, and then rolled out. Like that was it.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah.
Don't let the door hit you.
Here's your $20 for working tonight, kid.
Yeah. No. Awesome match. That was a good time. So it's interesting. Bruiser Brody, in that last match, Jose Gonzalez is here on the card, and Bruiser Brody, of course. Gonzalez was charged with Brody's murder in Puerto Rico in, 88 or so. And he was acquitted, but that decision is still sort of controversial. So it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure they crossed paths on cards constantly for, these 10, 12 years or so when they were both in the business. But
yeah, who was it that they couldn't get to come testify in the trial? And that's what... Yeah,
it was one of the other... other wrestlers who was there.
Was it Colon that wouldn't testify or something like that?
I think it was one of the other Puerto Rican wrestlers. Yeah. Don't quote me on that. So, but anyway, yeah. All right, who's next? Is this the Chief Jay Strongbow? No. Yeah. Okay. Another fun tag team match. Got the old reliable Indian gimmicks. Billy White Wolf, who is actually later Adnan, Sheik Adnan Al-Qaisi, and we've seen him in that gimmick as well. So he's just kind of an all-purpose ethnic person. Born in Iraq, actually, so why not? Let him play a Native American.
Supposedly high school friends with Saddam Hussein.
Interesting.
Yeah.
He's the Charles Bronson of the WWF. Just like whatever ethnicity you need, just throw that guy in there.
Yeah.
And of course he's in the corner with Chief Jay Strongbow, who's
also not Native American.
Also not Native American. I was going to say, along with maybe Wahoo McDaniel, probably the two most famous sort of Indian gimmick wrestlers from this time. Wahoo actually was I forget which tribe, but anyway, and they are facing Baron Michael Skikluna.
The Baron,
and Rocky Tamayo. The Baron.
So they introduce him from Malta, and knowing that Jay Strongbow and Billy White Wolf, neither one of them are Native American, I just put down from Malta. Yeah, right. And then I Googled it, and he actually was
He's
from
actually
Malta.
from Malta, yeah. And Rocky is Peruvian, apparently.
Yeah.
So he was born 1930. Good Lord. So he's kind of an old dude here.
Yeah, my autocorrect just calls him Rocky Tomato.
That's racist.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, the Baron. Inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 1996.
Yeah, he's one of the first ones in.
Oh, wow. I didn't remember him at all.
Yeah, the Vince McMahon points out that Jay Strongbow and Billy White Wolf are throwing, quote, some Indian trinkets to the audience.
Okay.
What are those? Like,
shut up, Vince.
No turquoise necklaces, because then that's some real money. I'll take one of those.
Yeah. But Billy and the Chief are way over with this crowd. They dig it. Yeah. Strongbow in particular, we've seen before, and man, the fans loved him. He had a way of working that gimmick and just.
Well, he really leaned into the Native American thing. He would do the little fake dances around the ring and the chops and stuff like that. It didn't seem like Billy White Wolf did any of that. He just was like an Indian gimmick, so it made sense for him to be partnered with Jay Strongbow.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's an uncomfortable moment at the start with how the referee is like sensually checking the Baron's tights. He's just like slowly rubbing over the I guess you could call it the bikini area, checking for foreign objects.
Oh, I think he found one.
Yeah, and he is from Malta, and so
I don't even know where that is. It's in near Greece.
I think so. I think it's in the Mediterranean somewhere.
Listen to us. We're the two most ignorant people on the podcast.
I know. Sure, Jay Strongbow's an Indian. Whatever. Yeah. Okay.
No, if he wasn't, could he wear that headdress? I don't think so.
No.
Sorry.
Didn't they do a thing with him handing the headdress to Tatanka at some point?
That sounds right. Again, Tatanka, actual American Indian, Lumbee tribe. But whatever.
Yeah, so the moment he finishes the check, he didn't find anything to start the match, immediately the Baron pulls some sort of foreign object out of his tights. Classic heel stuff, just good old-fashioned heel storytelling. So
you didn't check that at all. You were just trying to get a handful.
You were just rubbing him. You're just giving him a rub.
I mean, if that's what you're up to, that's cool. Go for it. But let's not pretend. Let's.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it was the 70s, and people were a little less liberated then. So.
Yeah, the ring boys weren't out, right?
No, not yet.
So.
Oh boy. Next topic. Yeah. Next topic. Yeah.
This match went real fast.
Yeah.
This one was over quickly. Strongbow and Billy White Wolf land a double chop off the ropes for a fast-paced random finish. Came out of nowhere. I was like, shit, it's over? And then that was it.
Yeah, crowd loves it.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, Baron and Rocky.
Yeah.
So, all right. What do you got next?
Next I have is the big cage match that we're here for.
So the page that I'm looking, this is from the Pro Wrestling Wiki. The other two matches they have listed on here are Bobo Brazil versus Doug Gilbert.
Yep.
And Ivan Putski versus Skandor Akbar.
Yeah, they come on after the main event.
Okay. I don't. Did I turn it off at the wrong time? Maybe I did. Who knows?
Maybe you did, because they were on the show.
No.
They were just on after Stan Hansen and Bruno Sammartino.
Well, shit. I don't know. I'm all out of whack, apparently. What did we just say about life and...
And they didn't change the order either, because I remember the announcer distinctly points out that this is the main event, but not the last match.
Yeah. Well, clearly I don't know what I was doing that day.
You gotta listen, dude. You gotta listen when we're
apparently
doing the shit.
Well, then why is it listed in the wrong order on this page? I'm gonna take this up with the makers of ProWrestlingFandom.com. Anyway, Bruno Sammartino, who is the champion, versus Stan Hansen in a steel cage match for the WWF Championship. Again, this is Bruno's return to get that get that nasty Stan Hansen out of there for injuring him and putting him out of action for several months. Man, that crowd is it's like Jesus rolling into Jerusalem when Bruno comes through that crowd.
Holy shit.
He should have rode a donkey.
And his theatrics start immediately. He didn't come out right away.
Yeah.
You know, Stan comes out, gets in the ring. He's testing the cage, blah, 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 getting booed. And then everybody realizes that it's time for Bruno to come out. And they start chanting Bruno. And just the crowd is getting worked up and worked up and worked up. And Bruno still hasn't come out yet. And, like, they're just so amped for Bruno Sammartino to show up. And then he finally comes out through that curtain, and the place explodes. Like, people talk about the Road Warrior pop. Give me the Bruno Sammartino pop anytime.
Seriously, yeah.
My God. My God. I bet you Madison Square Garden has not gotten that loud ever since.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Like, it is literally pandemonium. If we had Gorilla Monsoon on commentary for this, he would be calling it pandemonium.
It's pandemonium. Yeah. No, it's unreal how over he is, and it's fantastic. It's really great to see it. You know, I think crowds today pop for different people. To me, a lot of it is ironic's not the right word, because I think they like the people that they're cheering for, but it's also sort of cheering for the sake of cheering. You know what I mean? It's not like you're so excited to see this person. It's more like I want to participate in this thing where I'm cheering for this this face or this heel. Whereas here it's like I cannot stand how excited I am to see Bruno, and I'm going to start yelling about it with every fiber of my being.
Right. I mean, I think it's also a different time to where the crowd is. The crowd has got to be wise to it at this point, but at the same time, like, they are completely suspending belief.
Yeah.
Right? They believe that Sammartino is there to beat up that bounty hunter of a Stan Hansen, right? Like, they're to a certain extent, they still believe it's real. But then also you have this thing where nowadays, if you want to see Cody, you can watch him in high def on your 90-inch television anytime you want on demand. You can go on the social media and see what he's Xing. I don't know what they call what you do on X anymore. Do you still tweet on X like that? Anyways,
I don't know.
It's another episode. It's just you have so much access. Yeah. Right, to the superstars of today compared to back then. You wanted to see Bruno, you either tuned in to the MSG network and watched him on your 25-inch color tube TV with like really grainy reception and hope that it comes in on a clear night, or you had to buy a ticket to Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
You know, and so like you bought that ticket. You are in the upper deck, and you are fucking amped. You are amped. Bruno, your boy, is there. He represents you. He fights for you.
That's right.
Right? You know, he's a blue-collar guy. He is there to just whip some ass, and you are there for it. And so you get 15,000 people that are just like that packed into an arena. It's going to be loud. And boy, woof. It's like Vince is screaming the entire time of this match. I mean, he's always screaming, but in this case, he has to scream to be heard, just because the crowd is just foaming at the mouth through this entire thing.
Yeah. And let's not shortchange Stan Hansen, who is just an absolutely incredible performer. Has this just beautiful golden mane and mustache here. He looks like... it's unreal. Like, I wasn't quite ready for it. I was used to kind of the more like gritty alcoholic looking Stan Hansen, with the
Yeah.
you know what I mean, with like the
Yeah.
tobacco juice squirting out and like all that stuff. And he looks amazing here. He's huge. He's built. He's got that hair, and he always brings the violence. That's his whole thing. There's not a lot of finesse to a Stan Hansen attack. There's not a lot of fancy moves. It's just straight up violence. And Bruno meets violence with violence, and they go at it hammer and tongs, like I think Gorilla used to say.
Yeah. And I think this plays more into that ethnic booking again too, to where the bad guy is his beautiful blonde hair, these flowing blonde locks, versus the very rustic old country look of Bruno Sammartino, the tough guy. He's hunched over because he's got real muscles from working down at the docks during the day, and now he's there to fight. His face shows a lifetime of strain and worry and World War II on it. He's your immigrant that came over from the old country and now is fighting for the American way.
He's covered in hair.
Right. And it's the same tactic to when they debuted Hulk Hogan as a heel in WWF in the early 80s, late 70s, where he shows up and he's got the exact same hair as Stan Hansen and the mustache, and he's booed and he presents himself as a pretty boy. And like, how does a gunslinger from Texas be a heel? And it's because he's in a big city fighting the everyday worker man,
Yep, hardworking immigrant guy.
Right, the guy that built the Empire State Building by himself, right?
Yeah, I think he's in those old pictures of those guys up on the beams, eating their lunch.
Yeah, he's up in the beams. He's packing his lunch. He's got one of those steel tin lunch boxes in the back in the locker room that he just ate like a bologna sandwich and an apple out
of. It's a tin of anchovies or sardines and a couple boiled eggs.
He might have a Braunschweiger like a liverwurst sandwich in there too. I mean, it is New York.
A whole head of cabbage.
Yeah, it's a whole head of cabbage.
Oh man. Yeah, so they proceed to beat the living fuck out of each other.
Oh my god!
This match doesn't last very long. For being the main event, being in a cage. This is that kind of weird that very specific to the WWF and WWF steel cage match where you can win by climbing out over the top or walking out through the door, which I think, as Jim Cornette points out regularly, it sort of defeats the fucking purpose of a steel cage match. The whole point of the match is that you got two guys that are locked inside and they can't leave until one of them's a clear winner. But if you can just leave, but they still make it work here for sure. And when, spoiler alert, when Bruno walks out the door like a fucking champion, like there's no question, he's not running away from a fight, like it's over, like, and he's just he's gonna walk off into the sunset and go eat his bologna sandwich and head of cabbage.
Because essentially he stops an inch short of like killing Stan Hansen.
Yeah.
There's definitely some real life heat that has come to the ring here. As nice of a guy as Bruno presents, I would be kind of pissed too at the guy that dropped me on my neck and nearly killed me, or left me paralyzed, either one, right? Yeah. And so finally, because he's worked his ass off to become who he is. Like, he had to emigrate, escape post-war Europe, get into the United States. He falls into pro wrestling by accident and just becomes a superstar. And then this young buck, Stan Hansen, drops him on his goddamn head. Like, you nearly took his livelihood away. You took almost everything from him.
Yeah.
So, like, there's definitely some real heat coming out in this match. And, like, Stan gets the hot start on him, but once Bruno takes back control, he never gives it up. And it's just Bruno beating the living piss out of Stan Hansen for, like, 10 minutes.
Yeah. So the way they wrap it up is Stan gets wrapped up in the ropes, gets tied up in the ropes. He can't escape, and he's bleeding at this point from his from his forehead. It's in his beautiful golden hair, and Bruno's just pounding and pounding and pounding and pounding until Stan's basically just like hanging there, limp, like yesterday's laundry, on the ropes, and can't do anything else. And Bruno sort of just turns and walks right out the door. Crowd is going friggin' insane, and then Hansen like milks it a little bit yet, and he sort of like falls out of the ropes.
He tries to celebrate.
Yeah.
Gets horribly booed, like the loudest boos I'd ever heard in my life, and then he collapses into the middle of the ring, just like great. Passes out,
and the crowd eats it up.
Oh yeah,
you thought they were happy before. Seeing him fall on his fat blonde-haired face is the best thing that's happened to them all week.
And like Hansen is selling so well that like it looks that like Bruno could have won this match 5 minutes earlier. But Bruno stays in there beating on him for another 5 minutes. So it really hypes up this like it's a grudge match. Bruno barely cares about the belt. He wants to get his licks in. Okay, I think I'm done now because he looks dead. I'm going to walk out cool, calm, and collected. Doesn't climb out. He just opens the door calmly and doesn't look back. Like cool guys don't look at explosions kind of style. Like it is one of the most badass and coolest moments you'll ever see. And after that match, I was like, man, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
Bruno fan for life.
Oh my God, I would have been buying tickets any time Bruno Sammartino was coming to town.
Yeah, for sure.
I would have been there, no doubt. No freaking doubt.
So let's see. So where does Bruno go after this? He's then defeated in 1977 by superstar Billy Graham, another sort of blonde pretty boy, Stan Hansen, Hulk Hogan type, right? And also sort of a what do I want to say? Sort of a transitional moment, right, from the kind of old school, down and dirty, regular looking dude with a hairy chest to the sort of the bodybuilder, the flamboyance, the tie-dyed and the sunglasses and all that stuff that then of course becomes the entire pro wrestling in the early 80s. So
is that not when he lost to Ivan Koloff? Or
says
do I have things out of order here?
Well, let's see. Match 76 was Hansen.
71. 71 is when Koloff beat Bruno. That's when Koloff ends Bruno's first title run.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all right. He had another feud with Zbyszko, I guess, then in like 1980 or so. Another big steel cage match to blow that one off.
Was that at Shea Stadium?
I do believe, yeah.
Yeah, so that's on the same card as Andre and Hulk Hogan.
Oh, okay.
Too, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe we should watch that one next. That sounds like
we should probably watch Showdown at Shea at some point. That'd be great. If we can ever record again after this time.
I know, right? So anyway, and then he came back. This says he apparently did some things with Ring of Honor. That's fascinating. Sounds like
it seems his speed after watching this match. Ring of Honor definitely seems his thing.
Yeah. Died in 2018. Not that long ago.
Nope.
He was 82. So anyway, absolute legend. One of the best to ever do it. And again, you don't hear as much about him these days, but he was as big as some of these folks have ever been. So it's cool to be able to watch him. Also fascinating to me that Stan Hansen is still alive and kicking. That's a guy that I was sure his liver would have fallen out by now. But he's 75.
Or jaw cancer or something.
No face. 75, still kicking down Waco, Texas.
He's kind of having a bit of a resurgence in popularity too, with lots of indie guys mention their love of Stan Hansen. I know Greek God Papadon, who's been on our show, is a big fan of Stan Hansen. Vaughn, who works down in OCW, or OVW. I'm sorry, OVW. Al Snow's promotion thing down there. Jack Vaughn, the last real pro wrestler. He refers to Stan Hansen as Father Stan.
Father Stan. I love it.
Yeah, I would say JBL is a modern day in reincarnation of the Stan Hansen pro wrestling spirit, and he's basically living the Stan Hansen dream with a resurgence right now, coming back in various promotions right now, including Major League Wrestling and AAA in Mexico, which is wild. I met him recently, listeners. I went to a show where it was supposed to be Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash injured himself somehow and could not travel to the show, pissing me off greatly because I still need to get his autograph on that Survivor Series program. But they sent JBL as a substitute instead, and the dude just sat there the entire night taking pictures with fans and signing autographs and being a cool guy, and then got in a ring and clotheslined somebody, which was a lot of fun to watch. And,
that person is now dead.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the Stan Hansen, Bruno Sammartino thing that sucked me in, and I'm changing my name to Bruno now.
Okay, I'll support you.
Yeah. Apparently, Bruno Mars was named after Bruno Sammartino.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not like there's that many Brunos in pop culture, you know.
No.
Wow.
No.
Well, shall we talk about the two matches afterward that I kind of spoiled by talking about them out of order, or are we?
Let's get to them.
All right.
Oh.
So who was next? Again.
Next was Bobo Brazil versus Doug Gilbert.
Okay.
I was like, Jesus Christ, Bobo Brazil.
I know. This is insane. So hopefully you guys remember we did, it's been a year or two now, we did an episode about sort of African-American pioneers in wrestling. And Bobo Brazil was really sort of recognized as like the first, big time, black champion in wrestling. He was a mentor to Rocky Johnson. He was just immensely popular and prolific for many, many years. He was born in 1923, so that means here he was, 54?
Yeah. And he's such a draw that they were willing to ignore, like, segregation laws and all the other Jim Crow laws. They ignored them to book him because he was so over and made them so much money.
Yeah, he made his pro wrestling debut in 1951, so he's been wrestling for like 26 years at this point. And he didn't retire for another 15 years. He retired in 93, so what is that, another, 13, 16 years.
And he's one of the classic shooters.
Yeah, legit.
Like at the time when they had to they wanted him to drop the belt, they had to send someone to try and like legit beat him to take it off of him. So he's like one of the old school shooters, just like Bruno. So. And
he is wrestling Doug Gilbert, brother of course, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, who we've seen before. Their dad was a sort of famous wrestling promoter. This says
Doug Gilbert kind of looked like Gene Shalit in this.
Yeah, this is not the right Doug Gilbert. This Doug Gilbert was born in 1969 that I'm looking at here, so that's clearly not him, unless he was.
Brazil beats up a 12-year-old,
7-year-old. That was terrible. Bobo Brazil does beat up 12-year-old Doug Gilbert and wins this one, as he should, right? He's a full-grown man, and he's just 7. So I don't know. Did you have any observations on this match? Like I said, I was just kind of blown away that Bobo Brazil was here in 1970.
I was not expecting this twist, and then Gilbert tries to get the fast take on Bobo as he's like the announcer's still announcing them, and Gilbert jumps Bobo Brazil, and then all I noted down was like Bobo is going to kick murder this guy, and he basically does, and then before Bobo could get the win, Gilbert was like, "No, you're going to hurt me," and walked out, and that's the end of the match.
Which is probably a fair response, to be honest.
Yeah.
Do you remember Kick Puncher on Community? He had that like a RoboCop guy whose punches were as strong as a kick. So stupid. So then the very last match, I guess, right, is Ivan Putski, the Polish Hammer. Love that guy. Versus Skandor Akbar. Another name, somebody we've seen a lot. It's been around in all kinds of different, chic gimmicks over the years.
I really only remember him with the AWA stuff against the Gagnes, him being their major pain in the ass. This match is weird. They just scroll Polish Power really fast across the bottom of the screen because it's 1970s. They can only do so much. Ivan isn't quite in his holy shit, that's a lot of muscles form yet, but he's getting there. And Putski cuts an impromptu promo right before the match. He takes the microphone away from the announcer, and he says that he's going to send Skandor back to Tel Aviv. But I don't think Skandor was Israeli.
Is he from parts unknown?
I don't know. Tel Aviv is not parts unknown either.
Well, that's true.
He was actually born in Wichita Falls, Texas.
Or Tel Aviv. Either one. It's fine.
His parents are definitely from someplace else, but his father was from Lebanon and his mother was Syrian.
Okay.
But she was also born in Texas too. So he's just from the United States. He's just from Texas. And apparently Skandor Akbar is the Arabic translation of Alexander the Great.
Huh. Well, there you go.
Yeah. It's a good name. It's a good name.
Absolutely. Good heel too. And Ivan Putski is I love Ivan Putski. He was a bodybuilder for a while, and some of those 80s stuff you see him, he's an absolute unit. Of course, every time we talk about him, we have to talk about Gorilla Monsoon informing us that you can always tell when Ivan Putski's around because of how much onions and garlic he eats, and apparently he leaves a onion and garlic smell trail wherever he goes, which I think is just Gorilla being racist, but I'm not 100% sure.
And then I recommend you going back and watching this match. It's very short. It's very quick. And it's not necessarily what happens in the match because Ivan sends Skandor into the ropes, comes back, and then there's the big Polish hammer to the chest for the pin. But Vince McMahon is very clearly attracted to Ivan Putski through the commentary. He's talking about his muscles and just what kind of a man Ivan Putski is. It's very clear. Okay. It is very clear that he is turned on by Ivan Putski.
That's cool. Good for him.
His young male urges are taking over when Ivan Putski comes out.
Look at the guy. I don't know how you could not.
He's very charismatic too, so he's the full package.
Yeah. Well, so
with that we're over.
With that. Well, let's wrap this up. Well, no, this was a fantastic show. It's a WWE old school. It was, what is it? Season? Do you have the season stuff written down?
Was it having to be season 2, episode 1? I think something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can find it on the Peacock. It's right in there. I'd recommend it. You can skim through parts if you get bored, but the Executioners tag match, the steel cage match, and apparently Vince McMahon's love affair with Ivan Putski are highlights. And Bruiser Brody and being an insane wild man is also a highlight. Did you have a favorite? Was the main event your favorite, or was it that Executioners match?
I think the Stan Hansen versus Bruno Sammartino was my favorite match. It was my favorite, but I still think the Executioners tag match was the best match.
Yeah.
But my favorite match was the Stan Hansen versus Bruno Sammartino. If that makes sense.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
It was just a lot more fun. Just just the energy that came out of that match, and just This had to be one of the things that made Stan Hansen a star, just because of the way he puts Bruno over here.
Yeah.
He does business, as they would say.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, it's really great. It's more than the sum of what happens in between the ropes, I think, and that's what makes it a great one. Yeah, I don't think it's necessary to even pick a bad match on here. I don't know. Did you have an holy shit moment from this thing?
That first pop that happens after Stan gets his head bounced off the cage by Bruno, as Bruno takes control of the match fairly quickly and just takes Stan Hansen over to the cage. And it's very clear that I felt that it was pretty clear that Bruno was also playing to the camera to make sure that Stan's head bounces off the side of the cage that was closest to the hard cam.
Yeah.
And it just like bounces him off the cage like 4 or 5 times, and the crowd just got louder and louder with each one.
Yeah.
And that was a beautiful moment.
Yeah. No, it's really great. I really liked Stan Hansen trying to stand up and celebrate after his beatdown, and then just falling flat on his face, and the crowd just absolutely eating it up. I popped for that one. That was a good time. So
yeah.
Well, let's see. You like I said, check it out if you like it. Just send us a note. It's wrestlingarchives@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook. We have a pretty active Facebook group. You can find us on the Instagrams. We haven't done much on old X these days. I'm experimenting with Blue Sky for my personal thing. It seems to be all right so far. I don't know. You can go to, where's our t-shirts these days?
TeePublic.
TeePublic.com/Wrestling Archives. See, it's been so long since we've done this. I forgot all of our stuff.
I know.
ko-fi.com/Wrestling Archives for if you want to drop us a cost of a cup of coffee to help support the show, so we can keep bringing you old fun stuff from wrestling history. Yeah, otherwise, hope everyone has a good Thanksgiving, and Survivor Series will be on television. There's a AEW pay-per-view this coming weekend that I'm sure will be terrible. There's all kinds of old wrestling to watch. So watch what you like and like what you watch, and let us know what you're thinking. So
yeah, and if you're looking for brass music arrangements, look me up on Sheet Music Direct. Just look up Richard Sigwald. You'll find me there. Started selling my old stuff. Very exciting. I made a couple sales.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's shameless self-promotion, right?
Watch out, world. Yeah.
Well, that's the plan. I can retire from the state in 10 years, and so I retire from the state and then live off of royalties and residuals. That's the plan. That's the golden dream right there.
Okay.
But with us buying a new house, it's probably not going to happen.
Well, it's all right.
Yeah. So
just switch to the store brand cereal. You'll be fine.
Yeah, that'll do it. I'll stop eating avocado toast and Starbucks.
And Starbucks, yeah.
Because as a millennial, that is what's crushing my dreams.
That's right. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. I'm your co-host, Tim.
And I'm your co-host, Rich.
And we'll see you next time.
Go have a snack, Tim.
I'm so hungry.
We forgot to record the in memoriam while doing this episode, so this is Rich while doing the editing to give you the rundown of those who we would like to take a moment to think about as we commemorate the main event from August 7th, 1976 from Madison Square Garden. Those who are no longer with us include Special Delivery Jones, SD Jones, Dominic DiNucci, Killer Kowalski, Big John Studd, Bruiser Brody, the Grand Wizard, a.k.a. Ernie Roth, Kevin Sullivan, Baron Cicluna, Rocky Tamayo, Chief Jay Strongbow, real name Luke Scarpa, and Billy White Wolf, real name Adnan Al-Qaisi. I'd also like to remember Bruno Sammartino, Bobo Brazil, and Skandor Akbar, whose real name was Jimmy Weba.